All right, and so then you're in undergrad, you're working with FarmAField. When does this idea of Flyover Whiskey enter the picture?
Yeah, so after FarmAField, I felt the need to go work at a larger organization. I felt young and green and wanted to see how the actual larger organization operated, what they did well, what they didn't. So I went and did a short stint in industrial engineering for a large manufacturer. And kind of while I was there, I was learning a lot, but also realizing my initial finding of I love the early stage company, really fun. And so part of that realization happened by working with a large organization. But while I was there, I had always kind of had this idea, oh, this would be fun to do a custom present or gift for one of my friends, whether he got married or started their farm or stuff like that. So I always had in the back of my mind that it would be fun and cool to make whiskey from your own corn. But that being fun and sounding cool is not necessarily mean a good business opportunity. And when I was in the manufacturing space, you saw a lot of different manufacturing processes or setups, mostly being, okay, what is your mix and what is your volume? And in one words, are you building custom products at a lower scale, or are you building high volume products with a lower mix? And I kind of overlaid that with some of the things that I was looking at. The whiskey industry is there's a lot of these big companies that are building a few product lines that they scale and try to build nationally, get on retail shelves, stuff like that. Not as many that are doing more of the high mix custom. And that's probably for a reason. And kind of overlaying that with knowing what kind of processes need to be in place to make a custom manufacturing process work, which is effectively what Distillery is and what Flyover Whiskey was kind of saying, okay, I feel like I have the tools and I know where things break, where things work to actually make a custom batch distillery function as a business. And then after that, I decided to leave that job. I was able to defer grad school for a little bit, work on Flyover Whiskey and get that off the ground.
So, I mean, the concept is really cool, right? I mean, anyone who wants can make a bottle of whiskey, or I don't know what the minimum order is, with their own corn. How did you validate that idea? Because this is something where I think it's one of those things where everyone says, yeah, I love the idea. But you have to validate, okay, is this actually a business? Does this person who says they love the idea actually, are they going to put money up, to actually pay for this? How did you validate that idea and decide, this is actually worth my time to get this started?
So two approaches that I kind of took. One was just looking at some adjacent trends. You saw a lot of farm to fork. People had a desire to consume products that they either made themselves or they knew of people who made them. So there's that trend. Alongside with a lot of the farmers, row crop farmers, corn, soybeans, it's not really a tangible way to consume that product in a way, same way that maybe a beef producer has. And so I kind of looked at those two things and I said, hey, I think there'd probably be an opportunity to do some custom distilling for these people to give a product from those products. Again, that's just one piece of the validation, but I'm looking at these patterns. And then the second thing is taking relatively small bets. And so kind of started this off as a side hustle, got it going, and then was able to run some early tests that, again, the goal is to not put yourself into, $1 million of debt to test something, right? You can only validate so much. You have to get out and just try to do it. And if you can get out and try to do it for a low cost, low risk way, then you can start actually putting product in people's hands. And so we did that, had to go through the licensing process. By the time that we had launched, it wasn't a huge capital investment. I hadn't necessarily gone all in on it yet. And I was able to say hey, our labeling and all of that, our whiskey's good enough. Our labeling has a lot of work to do. And there's just a ton of demand kind of from the start. And so we got lucky there that the product market fit just was a hit out of the gates. And then we're able to go all in and grow from there.
And so did you know anything about distilling before this? And how did you just find a distillery willing to do this for you?
No. So through undergrad, I took just through my engineering degree, took a lot of chemistry classes. And through that, you learn separation methods through distillation. It doesn't take much for a college kid to take that knowledge and say, hey, I probably could do this to make whiskey. And so the technical ability was there, and then was able to actually just design all of the distillation equipment and the whole process myself using some of that knowledge. And so we designed the manufacturing process and systems and ran it.
And how long from when you all were open for business for Flyover Whiskey for a farmer to send you, I don't know what it is, a bushel of corn and get back some whiskey? How long from when you were open for business to when you left the company?
Yeah, so open for business, I believe July of 2021, and then so about 12 months. So a lot of the business was starting and getting licensing and stuff like that going. And then once we started our first batch to when I sold the company was about a year.
Okay. And why sell?
So I had the opportunity to go to grad school, and that was something I wanted to do. I deferred that grad school period. I started Flyover Whiskey, and part of my goal was I wanted to go through all the motions of a business, the starting, the growing, and the exit. Now, this was not a huge business. This was a very profitable business, very good business. It was like not a home run, it was a base hit, but just going through the mechanics of all those steps was a goal of mine. And so I kind of set a period of time. I said, I want to do this and then take those learnings and go to grad school and continue kind of on this path of working the early stage businesses.
Well, and of course, you had a chance to go to Stanford for your MBA, which not a lot of people do. So I could see the appeal there as well. How did you find a buyer so quickly? I would think for something that, okay, this isn't going to be $1 billion company, probably, but it does have, some appeal. Was it a customer that said, hey, if you ever want to sell this thing, I'm interested? Or was it luck, or did you have a strategy for exiting that quickly?
No, that's a good question. So initially I had set out and said, hey, I want to kind of manage this remotely. And I kind of looked and said, okay, let's start to vet some potential candidates to manage this remotely. And as I got further along, I realized that without the regulatory aspects of it, managing something remotely was not necessarily going to be super feasible. Plus, I'm a big believer that, if you try to do two things at once, you end up half-assing both of them. And so I had to make a decision. And through that process, there's a small family business that was nearby North Bend, and he was a friend of ours and friend of a friend. And so kind of through the grapevine, heard that we're kind of in the market. And then he and an investor kind of came in and said, hey, we'd like to purchase this business. And so definitely, as with a lot of things, an element of luck and timing and just kind of small world in agriculture.